Show me how to do it. Get up!
Halloween Ends provided horror fans a very unique conclusion to the saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. It managed to do something different with the story, utilizing an entirely new character in Rowan Campbell's Corey Cunningham to embody and revitalize the very essence of Michael Myers himself, all while still acting as the final chapter for Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode. The movie is different, and while I can certainly understand where the negative response came from, Halloween Ends was never a film about Michael Myers, but about his legacy. The legacy that evil left on a small, damaged town in Illinois, and how that legacy affected people, one of which being Corey Cunningham. Corey's damaged past set him on a violent path where he came face to face with the very incarnation of evil. Did this encounter alter Corey's body and mind? Did the shape's evil really transfer to Corey? Join us as we take a deep dive into the legacy of Michael Myers and Corey Cunningham in Halloween Ends. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad.
And I'm Miguel.
And in this special episode, we wanted to take a deep dive into the very interesting and very talked about relationship between the Shape, Michael Myers himself, and Corey Cunningham in Halloween Ends. It was arguably the most talked about dynamic in that film, and it's one of the most talked about dynamics in the franchise at this point. It's very interesting to kind of break down the bits and pieces of this and kind of take a deep dive into what their little team-up situation was in Halloween Ends. Obviously, people who have read the novelization have a little bit more context. I have not made it all the way through the novelization. I know bits and pieces of that.
I can't read.
Yeah. But, you know, I think there's kind of an interesting conversation. I'm just going to say this now. I'm not saying that my interpretation of it is correct. This is just kind of like watching it in the theater and having since rewatched it 3 or 4 times. I've just kind of like, this is kind of how it makes sense in my head of what happened in terms of like the evil transfer and things like that. So first, let me start off by saying that I see Halloween Ends as an epilogue to the trilogy. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I would agree.
For me, the trilogy is Halloween 78, Halloween 2018, and Halloween Kills. That's kind of the full trilogy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I see Halloween Ends as the epilogue because the story began back in 1963 when Michael killed Judith in her bedroom. And it continued in 1978 when he broke out when he was 21 years old and he found Laurie in Haddonfield. And then, of course, there's 40 years of peace. And, peace for most people. Of course, Laurie was building up her Sarah Connor arc in that 40 years. But nevertheless, people still remembered what happened in 1978. They still remembered the murders. They made up rumors. The Shape became folklore after that. And we kind of get little bits and pieces of that in Halloween Kills until Michael broke out in 2018. And for the longest time, Michael was just a story to people. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't an actual person, or
He was
yes,
he was
he is an actual person.
essentially he was the boogeyman that they told stories of.
Right. And yes, he was a physical person, but he was so far removed at that point that in the minds of the people of Haddonfield, he was just the boogeyman. He was a story. He was folklore. And I think part of the reason that they cast Laurie out, like a leper, as Heath Ledger would say, was because she had a legitimate encounter with him, and that stayed with her. These other people didn't viscerally experience what he did in 1978 like she did. She saw her friends die. She watched Loomis shoot him off of the balcony and him walk away. She had a true experience of what happened, and of course that molded her into the badass Sarah Connor fighter that she ended up becoming in 2018. And then suddenly that legend became reality. The thing that people had talked about for so long suddenly became a real life event, and it was really happening to people. And some people overreact, just like what we saw at the hospital with Tivoli, where they do the whole evil dies tonight and people screaming and kicking and doing whatever else, and some people underreact, like the old couple in their home. They don't fully grasp what's happening. I know there was a lot of misinformation and confusion and chaos.
You're talking about the couple that lives like down the road from like Laurie, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the woman that's like, what'd you say? She's like, that woman will fuck you up or whatever when they're talking about Laurie. But, of course, then fast forward to Halloween Ends. And Halloween Ends, to me, how I have interpreted Halloween Ends is that Halloween Ends is not about Michael himself, but it is about his legacy. Marion saying that he's the essence of evil in Halloween Kills. He's the boogeyman.
He's the essence of evil.
Yeah, he's that good old white sniff. But he is the boogeyman. Tommy's entire plot in the 1978 original, it was the boogeyman. Her saying, like, definitely that was him after Tommy tried to convince her after he tried to convince her for so long in his annoying, squeaky 10-year-old voice. Yeah. It was him. It was proven to her that was the boogeyman. And Michael is finite, hence the state that we see him in Halloween Ends. He's old, he's drained, he's injured, he's beat up, he's sick. But Michael's legacy,
I like that, yeah,
is not finite. That, again, that, like what we talked about, people making up rumors and being folklore, that's not finite. That continues on. That can and I don't know what I'm saying. That can and will, that's what I'm trying to say, live in the hearts and minds of people in Haddonfield. Would you agree with that?
No, I would agree perfectly on that. I liked what you said. Michael was truly finite in Halloween Ends, but his legacy became infinite, if that's pretty much how you put it. And I couldn't agree more. And I think that's primarily why this topic in particular is something that's very, I guess, quote unquote, common or, well known, I suppose, because we have to talk about like how, although Michael was at his lowest point, physically speaking, he was at the height of his legacy of like,
right, yeah,
after everything that's been said and done, like Michael is solidified now into not only Haddonfield but the entire country, because we know from the novelization that the FBI was involved in everything. So it just goes to show, like, my man put a name out there,
right? Well,
so
and
we put some respect on that name.
Yeah. And after he disappeared after the events of Halloween Kills, we see this in Halloween Ends when Laurie walks out of the store after she has her cute little twirl her hair interaction with Hawkins in the
so
grocery
cute,
store. It was very cute. But when she walks out or whatever, and the chick who I'm still shocked beyond belief that old LED light bulb to the throat woman survived.
Okay, but let's be honest. Old girl, just her entire character was.
Yeah, she just laid there the whole time. That's so
No,
awful.
I didn't want to make fun of that, but I mean, let's be honest.
But they
Why would
mentioned
you-
about
Yeah.
they mentioned about Laurie's boogeyman, and then Corey's mom mentions about, like, you know, just because your boogeyman disappeared, we needed a new one or something like they needed a new one or something like that. After Michael disappeared after Halloween Kills, they needed something to fill that folklore void, essentially. And Michael was reality now. He was no longer folklore. He was no longer Laurie's reality or Tommy's reality or Lindsay's reality or Marion's reality. He was everybody's reality. That really happened. It wasn't something that happened 40 years ago to a bunch of kids. Like, it was true. It was the town's reality. That folklore, that legend, that all that hate, all the gossip, all the rumors. The incident with Jeremy, what happened with Corey, gave them somebody else to hate other than Michael. And my interpretation of what happened with Corey's story, the passing of the torch, the evil changing shape concept, which is what we've titled this kind of special episode, all of that kind of harkens back to that 1978 original and this idea that Michael is the boogeyman, not only in essence and in lore and in, you know, kind of how people perceive him, but there is still that supernatural aspect to him. And I never got the supernatural aspect from Corey. Corey felt like a damaged person that turned to violence because of another factor. It didn't seem like Corey had this deep violence that was sown within him, which I think is kind of part of the question that Halloween Ends asks in general when Laurie's talking about the different types of evil and whatever. About some evil is just like it lives within you, and then other evil is like it kind of slowly makes its way in. I don't know. There's a very big conversation about evil in that film. You know?
No, so I get what you're saying in that regard. I think there's one moment that I think is really important with what you were getting with in regards to Corey's idea of evil growing inside, and that travels all the way back to the kid's father, if that makes the father in the beginning of the show, whenever he had his monologue about when he wanted some sort of closure with Corey, only to find out that Corey is no longer Corey.
Right.
You know, you could see it in the eyes, you know, the devil's eyes. But you could see that truly in there, and that kind of tracks back to it was just like a mutual, like, oh, we're both fucked up kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was more of a transference of fear, and basically, in Laurie's opening monologue, she talks about the effects of that. This is actually a pretty good segue, because she talks about the effects of what Michael did and that fear and that paranoia and kind of how that has spread through the community like an infection. And she also makes the, you know, like we see Oscar's mom has hung herself, and we see people have shot themselves in their car and whatever.
Man, I think about that a lot.
It's heavy stuff, you know? And Laurie says that she is making the decision to not let fear rule her life anymore. And for me, I think Corey's story boils down to that decision. There's a parallel there. Laurie attempted to find healing and redemption of her life after the adversity, after going through what she went through. She wanted to live. Now, I think Corey wanted to live a normal life as well, but he kind of ended up playing a different card. I think Laurie was a fighter. Laurie kept fighting for, you know, at the end of the day, Laurie knew that even if she died, she would do something good in ridding the world of evil, ridding the world of Michael, you know, whether that was for Karen or Allison or whatever. And they made a point to show us how Corey's life changed after the accident. Like, people saw him differently. People saw him as a monster. He was treated like a freak. You know, are you the freak show, or am I, what'd she say? Are you the freak show, or am I the, what does he say to her? Are you the freak show, or am I the freak show? I don't know. Weirdo? I don't know. I forget what they said, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. You know, he's treated like a nutter, like a freak, you know. He's the outsider, and he has this whacked out relationship with his spaghetti milk drinking mom, who's just all kinds of freaky. And, you know, like, what was once a good kid he was a good kid trying his best and trying to, you know, he talked about getting into college and things like that, and now he's got it pretty rough, and he feels that. You know, he was different. He couldn't move on from what happened with Jeremy. And Laurie ended up trying to move on. Even if it was 44 years later, she eventually said, okay, I'm done with this. Like, I need to move on with my life for me. And I think, you know, for me, my interpretation of all of this is that at the moment when the band nerds the band bullies, I should say, throw Corey off the road and Michael drags him into the sewer. When they grab eyes, when they grab each other's eyes, no, when Michael grabs him by the throat and they lock eyes, I don't think that the evil quote unquote transferred, but I think in that moment, Corey felt more fear than he'd ever felt in his entire life. And I think he didn't even realize that was possible. Even more than the incident with Jeremy. I think he felt true, genuine fear. The only kind of fear that someone like Michael can instill in somebody. And, like, if you go back and watch that moment, I noticed this in our watch along from 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like, if you go back and watch that moment, he looks paralyzed. Like, he doesn't even, like, there's a moment when he, like, actually looks into Michael's eyes. There's a moment of, like, he's unsure of whether to even fight back and try to live and try to survive and escape, or if it's like, okay, do I just surrender and give in to death at this point? Like, to escape, like, basically like suicide, even though it's not suicide, like to just escape the unfortunate circumstance that has become his life, you know? Like, I think it all, like, it even shows that it all flashes back to him, the moment with Jeremy, the journey he's been on up to this point. And like I said, for me, I think when Michael grabbed Corey and when they locked eyes with each other, I don't think the evil transferred. I believe in that moment, Corey decided... I think
it finally died that night. No, okay.
Evil died that night, yeah. I think that Corey decided in his... Even subconsciously, I don't even think it was a conscious choice. I think he wanted to make other people feel the same fear that he had just felt in that moment. He wanted to punish people the way that he had been unfairly punished, and he wanted to become.
Don't tell me that.
In that
don't
moment.
Tell me that.
But I think that's. I think that's the crux of it. That's like my.
What are you doing? Are you parallel? Are you like making parallels with fucking Batman?
No, I'm not. But I guess it is kind of like that, except Batman's not a murderous psychopath. But
exactly, but it was using the fear that he got to instill that to people that, you know, wronged him or the bad guys.
Well, think about, again, the band kids, like the marching band kids. I think it's ironic that Corey, when he gets up in the bully's face or whatever after he pulls the knife and he says, you know, the only reason you're a bully is because your daddy bullies you or whatever like that. I think that's interesting because the entire reason, I mean, let's look at this whole thing, like back up and look at it. The reason that Corey strikes down this violent, dark path is because of how he's been treated and because of what's happened to him and how he's been cast out by the Haddonfield community. You know what I mean? So I think it sounds cliche, like, oh, it's just another person like snapping because of what's happened to them because of trauma. Jamie Lee Curtis, that trauma. But I don't know. I think there's some truth to that for me.
But do you find
kind of my interpretation of it? I don't think that the evil literally transferred from Michael to Corey, like Corey would be the new Michael. I don't think it's that simple. You know?
I think it's possible that I agree that the evil didn't transfer because I think Michael is much more evil at a core aspect than Corey.
That too.
Yeah, because of how you said it, like how evil grew within Corey, I guess, because of how he was treated. But I think that makes him even less evil than say Michael, because with Michael you didn't have any rhyme or reason as to why he snapped.
Right.
It was just like that out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Right.
Whereas Corey needed a catalyst to like
Yes.
to
Yes.
snap the camel's back. So I think that's where whenever they met up with Corey, I think it's because I think the people of Haddonfield treated Corey the same level of evil as Michael, but when they had that moment between them locking eyes, I think that was Corey really staring at evil. He's like, oh, people thought I was evil. No, like this
Yeah.
man right here is
Yes.
evil.
Yep.
So
Well, and that's why he wanted Michael to teach him when he says like teach me or whatever, or show me or
mhm.
whatever he says. Like that's why he wants to learn from him. I mean, Corey feels so much. Like I even think back to the scene of when Allison and Corey are in the club and they're dancing and whatever, and Lindsay's pouring everybody drinks. She's the bartender, whatever.
With a bottle full of bug.
Yeah, yeah. One last call for alcohol. But when he sees the mom and it's like the color drains from his face, like there, he feels a lot of emotions and he feels a lot of regret and guilt, even though he really didn't do anything wrong, and it
Mhm.
really was just like a freak accident type thing.
Mhm.
But you know,
And that's what
I
I mean.
think
Like Corey's evil is it very much circumstantial at
I
best.
agree. I agree. I think
Mhm.
well, not even at best. I think it is very circumstantial. Now, whether or not there was something already inside of him, that's the question we'll never know. That's kind of the ultimate question. But I think
Well,
you
no,
said
it's
it
just
best.
you're a product of what you're around. You know what I mean? And I
That's
think
fair too. Yeah.
that's something that's very common with like people that are that people that that do these types of things. Like
Hmm.
that become serial killers. Like you look into their
Yeah.
past and stuff like that. Like, oh, well, he was obviously treated wrong, or he was raped, or he was mistreated by his parents,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something happened outside of a family. Like those things like that are like that lay the foundation for
Right.
people turning into the evil that they
Yeah.
now possess. And I think that just goes back to like with Corey, he needed that moment to bring it out of him. And
Hmm.
you could tell because he obviously had some sort of guilt with what happened.
Yeah.
Again, Michael just straight up killed his sister with
Right.
no
Well,
remorse.
and you kind of put it best when you said about like Michael just snapped one day. Like he was, well, we say he was a normal kid. I know they said about he was like at the beginning of Halloween Kills in the flashback scene when the cops talking about like, yeah, I grew up with Michael. Like, he was weird, like whatever. I don't really like that. I think it's much scarier this idea of like he was a normal 6-year-old kid that just snapped for no
Hmm.
reason. Like just went blank. Like there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Corey had something there, but I think Corey also sees the lack of emotion or humanity, that human spark in Michael. I think he sees that lacking and he wants that for himself, like when he escaped the sewer moments after escaping Michael and he kills the homeless guy when he says, I'm Michael Myers or whatever, and he stabs the homeless guy. Like, I think that whole moment unlocked something in him. And but the again, the crux of it is for me is that evil can't be taught. Evil just is. Michael just is purely and simply evil. Plug for our horror show. No, but like he is literally like he is the essence of evil. Michael is purely and simply evil. There's nothing more to him. There is no human side of Michael at all. Corey had
There's
a human side.
no
Corey, the whole the whole point of him stabbing himself is this idea of like if I can't have Allison, then no one will. He is willing to die just to make the point to Laurie that she can't have Allison.
mm,
Like Michael would never do that. Michael would never sacrifice himself just to make a point. You know what I mean? Like I think they're two very different animals. And I think this idea that Michael and Corey were somehow equally evil, I don't agree with that. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, as far as their relationship goes, was there ever really a quote unquote mentoring or passing the torch moment? No, I don't think so. I don't think it was ever a mentor thing. I think Michael was very much a human being, and he was going through what an elderly human being who had gone through what Michael had gone through was going through. You know what I mean? He was ill. He probably had tetanus and herpetogonosyphilades and like whatever else. I mean, bro probably hadn't had a shower in 6 months. Like, well, 6 months. I say that he was in that sewer for 4 years practically. Like, my man.
Old buddy was like, eating off rats and bathing with them.
Rats and people, and he who knows? Maybe he wore the mask the entire 4 years. You know what's nasty to think about? Corey put that mask on. No
hesitation either.
Corey straight up put that mask on.
Like, old buddy really like, you know how like you're about to drink something you don't like and you kind of smell it and you're like, ugh, like you could tell like it's gonna be bad. Corey straight up had no recoil. Old buddy just said, and it's on.
Yeah. You know, Laurie dumped like 5 bottles of Febreze on that thing when she left it in her house at the end.
I guarantee you, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Michael was very much a human being in this trilogy, and Michael needed Corey as a vessel to kill again. I think Michael knew that. I think Corey knew that he was weak, he was old, he was sick, he was malnourished.
Weak-ass vessel.
You know, I know, right? But I truly believe that Michael was aware of the fact that he was weakened, he was old. Like, I think he realized that. And there's a moment in this film that I think proves that theory. And it's the moment. It's one of my favorite moments that I've kept coming back to in the film. And it proves that Michael was thinking about this. It proves that he was present and around and thinking about what was happening. It's not like Michael didn't escape the sewer, or Corey didn't escape the sewer and then Michael go after him or whatever. Or Michael just stayed in the sewer and never came out. The moment when Corey, after they kill the cop, after they, he says, "Show me," or whatever, and Michael stands up and does whatever, and he has his little seizure, breathing heavy, whatever tetanus thing is happening to him in that moment.
You know what's gross?
What?
It's the fact that Corey had a moment of a seizure as well. You know what I mean? Like at the party.
Yeah.
Like, what do you
know
think?
what's weird?
How do you want to connect that?
If you really go back and watch that, it's almost sexual when Corey is holding the cop and Michael is stabbing him. Like, the way that Corey looks, it's almost like a sexual gratification. It's very strange. It's a very strange scene, but I also like it. It's weird, but I like it. It's cool. I don't like it in a weird way. Miguel just left. I don't like it in a weird way. I don't know. It's something kind of odd.
Story-wise, it's disgusting.
I mean, it's a disgusting concept, but it's kind of cool though too. But anyways, the what proves to me that Michael was watching Corey, and that Michael was giving thought into the fact that he needed Corey to kind of get back on the wagon, was the moment that after they kill the cop, when he shows up at the house and him and Allison are talking or whatever, and they start to kiss and they're going up the stairs, they're going up to have sex or whatever. And Laurie pulls in and sees them going up the stairs, and so Laurie is watching them and Michael is watching Laurie watch them. Like, Michael showed up. He followed Corey and he showed up to see where he would, like, he was paying attention to Corey. It's not like it was just by random happenstance that Michael and Corey ended up together. He followed him. Like, in that scene proves that. Now, I think it's funny that he looked at Laurie and he was like, nope. Because as soon as Laurie looks over, Michael turns and walks away.
What's funny? What's funny about that is because I find that hilarious because if you think about it, the last time Michael saw Laurie prior to that, Michael got his ass handed to him.
Yeah.
Like Michael
It would have
remembers.
been him looking up from inside of the like cage thing in the
Mm-hmm.
house. That would have been the
Yeah.
last time he laid eyes on her.
Yeah. And that was the last time he like saw those three. It was like the last time he saw those three, he got his ass kicked. And he was like, I can't do that right now. So you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
he was standing there and he said, "These knees can't handle it." And he turned around.
not
And walked
anymore.
away. Yeah,
Not anymore.
but that scene kind of proves to me that he was giving thought into Corey and their relationship and what he needed from Corey. And again, the crux of the whole thing for me is that evil just is. Evil can't be learned. Evil can't be taught. Evil can't be transferred. You are either purely and simply evil or you are not. And Corey thought that by stealing the mask and by trying to learn from Michael,
he thought that if he could be like, if he was being treated as evil, then
he could become evil.
He could become evil.
Right. Or that it would give him the same supernatural edge that Michael had. But he was wrong because at the end of the day, Loomis was always right. Michael Myers is the boogeyman. He's the shape, not Corey Cunningham. You can't learn that. Like, you just are. You are or you aren't. Now, can you have evil in you? Of course you can. I think Corey had evil in him. But I don't think it was the same type of evil as Michael.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty interesting that Blumhouse went in that direction, if you think about it, because I think it was necessary. I think what they were trying to do was exactly that, because everyone was kind of concerned with the idea of the transfer of evil and like continuing the narrative of Michael Myers, but it just being like other people, kind of the same. They didn't want to fall into like the ghost face trope where anyone can be behind the mask. You can wear the mask, but I think it was really cool. I think if you think back on it, Blumhouse did a really great job of saying nobody can be behind that mask.
Yeah,
just the boogeyman can be behind that mask. Only Michael Myers can be the boogeyman. Even the second evil person that is in Haddonfield can't be Michael Myers. Only he can do that. Well, and he solidified that with the Corey story. That way, no other studio can be like, anyone can be behind the mask. Let's just put someone behind the mask and think it's something like that. And like, no, that's not possible, because you have to be purely and simply evil.
Well, and I think I'm thankful that they didn't go with the original ending, because again, the original ending had it where like Laurie lashed out at Allison and then she told her to leave because Laurie knew that the evil had transferred to her. Like, I don't like that. I don't think that makes sense. I think that's too
2000 script. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. I think when you look at the original film, again, the entire concept of the original film is that Michael is the boogeyman. And I mean, that's literally Tommy's entire plot in the original film, is trying to prove the point that the shape is the boogeyman. Like, that's just, he is. Like, that's just it. So it's an interesting conversation. And again, I'm not saying we're right. I'm not saying we're wrong. I think there are many different components to this, and I think there are many different theories out there. So please leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you think of the Michael Corey storyline, the legacy of these two characters and kind of their relationship, and the team up thing. I think it's just, the team up was nothing more than Michael leveling back up, trying to build up some strength, trying to get some skin in the game again. Like, he was trying to work his way back in. So, and at the end of the day, he got his revenge. I said all along, you'll probably remember me saying this, Miguel, when we were covering the Halloween stuff before it came out, I said, I'm okay with the Corey Michael team up bit as long as Michael wipes the floor with him at the end. And he did. So we're good.
I'll have to look at that. I'll have to look at I'll have to look into the old videos that we have and figure out, like, what our initial reaction was whenever we found out Corey was going to be a part of it.
Yeah,
because we did cover that.
Well, there had been
So-
rumors of it for a long time, and then it kind of, it all came to fruition and things like that. But it's definitely a fun conversation. So please, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. New episodes of our shows premiere every single week. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at LTM Podcast KY. We love you. Be sure to leave this one a like. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing. And thanks for joining us in this special episode. We will talk to you very, very soon. Peace out. Bye.